Why? What is your theory?
I don't know. I don't know.
But what's your theory then? You must have an idea.
My theory is that we should investigate everything strange that happened on that day so we can figure out what happened. The difference between me and you is that I have the courage to take the risks and ask the questions first, okay, before it's popular. You wait until it becomes popular and then you change your mind.
Stop.
And she made no request of you whatsoever, Erika Kirk, in 4.5 hours. Well, no matter what your opinion is about Candace Owens, and very few people don't seem to have one, she has a definite knack for commanding attention. Many people have been openly enraged by her theorizing on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Many have been captivated nightly by what they see as either a thrilling real-time investigation into a colossal cover-up or a cynical strategy to exploit the most emotive and consequential news story of the year. Several of the Candace Owens claims are focused on Turning Point USA, the organization funded by Charlie Kirk and now run by his widow, Erika, who last week issued this firm request.
She has been one of the main peddlers of these conspiracies, and she is making a huge amount of money on it. She is building her business off of these lies. What do you want to say to her and the other people that are putting these lies out into the world right now?
Stop. That's it. That's all I have to say. Stop.
Well, shortly after that, Candace Owens was invited to a lengthy private meeting with Erika Kirk, which is now the catalyst for frenzied speculation that she may be having second thoughts about some of her theories. She's also, I should add, marking the release of her new book, Make Him a Sandwich. And amid all of that, she joins me now for her first interview since the meeting with Erika Kirk. Candace Owens, welcome back to Uncensored.
It's good to be with you at the end of another year.
Yes, and what a year it's been, not least for you. It's fair to say your fame continues to rise, infamy, some would put it, but you're always a welcome guest on Uncensored. Let's get to this extraordinary meeting that you had with Erika Kirk. It came right after we saw her say in that CBS town hall, you should just stop with the conspiracy theories. So who approached who about you guys actually getting together?
I was approached by Turning Point after Blake Neff, who works on Charlie's show, sort of fumbled this invite. It was, I'd almost say it was a fake invite publicly. And then in the middle of the night said, oh, Candace is not able to be here tomorrow. And they never messaged me. And I think there was quite a bit of public backlash with how they went about it. It just was just not the way that we try to set meetings. And so what happened after was they reached out to me, said Erika would agree to do a live stream, just the two of us. And then after Erika's PR blitz, they reached out again and said that they felt that it was better for us to meet one-on-one as opposed to us sitting down having Megyn Kelly moderate, which was the idea originally.
Right. And so where did you have your summit meeting?
At a hotel here in Nashville.
And a lot of your supporters, fans of your show, think that you may have been lured into a trap. Did anything while you were there make you think you were being lured into a trap?
I don't know that a lot of my fans think that I was being lured into a trap. I think ahead of time they had some concerns, obviously, because I think in general, after you see a public assassination and you start tracking so many lies that are happening, there's going to be an understandable amount of angst that people feel. And I certainly felt the angst as well.
And I don't blame her. And that's one of the reasons why she's getting a lot of dislikes on her YouTube video yesterday, kind of recapping her meeting with Erika Kirk. People are making kind of like memes talking about how now Candace is kind of holding back and she's not standing 10 toes down as she was before on certain things. I think people are being a little bit too harsh because they need to understand that Candace has known Erika probably the same time that Charlie did, and I'm sure they've gone to each other's weddings and whatnot. So Candace is, will always like and love Candace. I know this is personal for her. Her and Charlie came up together at Turning Point. So obviously this is personal for Erika as well. And I do have a lot of suspicions and a lot of things just don't seem right throughout this whole process. But again, whatever they feel, I will respect it, but I have my own opinions. We could talk about that another time. But um, I don't know at this point. Like, I just want the truth. Like, there's so many theories going on, whether it's, oh, Candace is saying that Turning Point betrayed Charlie, and Charlie never said that he was going to die. And then there's the Egyptian planes, and then there's also Candace saying that Turning Point betrayed Charlie, and um, the what's it called? That Charlie has, like, Man of Steel, like, levels of bone density, like the bullet like stayed within, but even the gun itself, the rifle that was used wouldn't be. It would be a lot more effective. It would have blown his head up right wide open if it was actually the gun that was used. Um, and I know that the FBI and the state where he got shot, or they're holding a lot of information back, or maybe they just don't know or have anything else. But it's very concerning. So I understand why Candace is doing things the way she is, because she doesn't trust our government, as well as not a lot of people trust our government, because the government has lied to us multiple times on multiple things that have happened in the course of history. So why wouldn't they lie about this now? And it's sad. And if the roles were in reverse and something were, God forbid, ever happened to Candace, I think Charlie would be just as stubborn and persistent to find the truth, just as much as Candace is, because they loved each other. They were friends. They cared about each other. So yeah, I just wanted to add that 2 cents. But she's gotten a lot of dislikes from that video, um, because people think that she's like betrayed the movement and things like that. But guys, we're all human. Like, we need to pay Erika her respects, and I'm not saying we have to trust the government, but we have to see both sides. But mind you, there are people lying a lot. But let's continue on.
I've obviously been very clear that I am suspicious of some of the characters that are at Turning Point USA. So I totally understand why the public was concerned.
When you saw Erika, she was obviously angry about you in that CBS town hall. What was her demeanor like when you met her?
Well, I don't think that she thought she was angry in that. I think maybe that was the characterization from the public. I certainly thought she was angry as well. And she sort of clarified that she was a bit annoyed by the questioning, the way in which Barry had set up the question with the podcaster Candace Owens, which I think was definitely being driven more by Barry Weiss's feelings towards me, long-running feelings towards me, than it was perhaps for the benefit of CBS and trying to pretend to be an impartial journalist. So I think she was frustrated by the line of questioning, is what she explained to me.
So how would you categorize the 4.5 hours? If you were looking at it in totality, what was the tone of the conversation? What do you think you both got out of it?
Well, for me, answers to the questions of trying to understand why there were so many Turning Point lies, and why, instead of people acknowledging that these are lies, I felt that there was this billion-dollar psychological operation to convince people that Candace is just crazy. These aren't lies. These are made up. And so I was very refreshed that they owned up to the lies. That was a great first step. And I think, what motivates that? Maybe because despite having what I would assume to be the best PR agents and crisis PR agents in the world, we're moving toward a different world where people don't really care. If you are friends with the people at, what is it, WME and CAA, and what they can do for you, that sort of power is ineffectual in this day and age. And so I think they recognize that, and that the public simply doesn't believe the story that they've been fed, and the psychological operation to convince us not to believe our own eyes or to trust our common sense instincts has failed. Okay, and I think on their end, they got more clarity on how I figured out certain things, more clarity on why I am convinced that there are people that are inside of Turning Point that are dirty. And I was able to share more with them off record. And I think that they got more clarity. in exchange.
Before we get into some of the sort of specifics, is there not a danger here? I've already seen it in some of the reaction from people that follow your show. Is there not a danger that in seeking to be the one that exposes the truth, and I don't know the truth about what happened to Charlie Kirk. I work on the assumption that this lone, twisted, weirdo Tyler Robinson killed him for whatever reason, and I suspect personally that is how this will play out. However, I have an open mind in the sense that we still don't really know what happened with President Kennedy's assassination. I found the attempted assassination of Donald Trump very odd in the way that that's been handled by the authorities and so on. I'm not naive. As a journalist of 40 years, I'm not naive enough to say every single thing you've been saying is obviously baloney, because I don't know. And we'll get to some of the more specific details. But is there not a danger, Candace, that by having a 4.5-hour private meeting, rather than doing it in public, that all you're really going to do, collectively actually, you and Erika Kirk, is fuel the conspiracy theories about what you may or may not have discussed in that meeting, what part of the stuff that you've been broadcasting on your show she agrees with and doesn't agree with, and so on. Is there not a danger this is the least transparent way of going about trying to get solutions here?
I don't think it's a danger. I think it just we don't know what they know, and I think that, and I'll obviously let Candace answer, obviously, but I don't think it's something that is ready to be. There's already enough conspiracy theories going on in the world, and I don't think that it's the right time to give the full context of everything that they found or why certain things are being said, due to the fact that, again, we don't have the clear facts of all we know is about Tyler Robinson and what his motivation might have been, right? Other than that, there hasn't been any actual things that has been brought into the actual system, and what they might talk about in public could damage the upcoming trial in May. I believe it's coming out in May of 2026. So obviously Candace has her private investigative skills and has sources and networks that are able to give her certain information, but I don't think it's a danger, because the information Candace and the Turning Point crew might have could interfere with the case of Charlie's assassination. And in a way, it could be counted as vigilante justice. And we're not in a comic book, guys. We're like, this is real stuff. So I don't think it's a danger per se, because people want to know the truth too. But Candace, I know that people are mad at her because she's been kind of like dragging this on for weeks, and every time she has a new headline about Charlie's death, it's not really a lot of information per se, just a lot of speculation. She's just questioning things, as she should, because Candace, if you know her, she's like a gossip queen. She likes to know the details. She likes to know what's the rumors, the theories, all these things. So it's in character with her. She's a very, like, she said it herself multiple times, that she's a nosy person. She likes to know things because she's a curious person. That's a very talented gift. I'm someone where I have that too, depending on the topic, but I don't trust anyone. I don't trust anyone's opinions, and I don't trust anyone's confirmation, because, like Piers said, JFK, if you know about the USS Liberty, if you know about RFK, MLK, Malcolm X, even Trump's assassination attempt, there's a lot of things that they lied. And we still to this day don't know anything about Fuchs, whatever his name was, Wilkes, the guy that shot Trump in the ear. We still don't know nothing about him, and that happened over a year and a half ago. It's crazy. So I don't blame Candace for doing this.
Well, I'm a very transparent person, so my preference was to do it publicly, but I took the offer, obviously, to have any conversation, because if I hadn't done that, then I think everything I'm in doing would have appeared disingenuous. Like, oh, Candace is pretending that she wants answers to her questions, but when she got this offer, she suddenly said she didn't want to go because it wasn't public. They would have felt like I was moving the goalpost. So I was willing to take anything. And from their viewpoint, they felt like after the CBS News and the Fox News hits that Erika did, it was... my understanding was that they felt that it was a good idea to bring the temperature down first by having us sit down and communicate. And that doesn't mean that they necessarily say, oh, well, that's it. Now we're not going to have any other public discussion. I'm hopeful they will. I think they should. I totally agree with you. More transparency, the better.
Who else was in the meeting? Erika was there. Who else was there?
Justin Strife, who is the COO of Turning Point USA, and my husband was only there for a portion of it, and my cousin.
So there were no lawyers, for example?
No lawyers. But they did phone their lawyer because I asked the question. I was like, look, I'm open to being wrong, obviously. If there is something, which I think the media was kind of hinting at, that they had more, but they couldn't share it with the public, I said, I'm happy to keep my mouth shut. And I want to feel good walking out of here that there is something there. There is some sort of a smoking gun. And I will tell viewers just to be patient. And so they did call one of the lawyers working on this case, and it was not convincing at all. He said, in effect, all we have is what the public has seen. Sure. And we won't know more because we're investigating and looking for more. And so that just made me go, why is everybody being so over the top and ridiculous and using words like the evidence is overwhelming? It was Tyler Robinson, when they don't have anything that's overwhelming to show that they don't have a video of him taking the shot, which I think was something that I assumed, like, okay, there's all these cameras. Maybe they actually have that video and they're waiting for a moment to release that to the public. They don't have that. Or at least I can say Erika's side has not seen that. And the lawyer communicated to me that they would not have access to that until earliest would be May. That right now they're just investigating, just like we're doing back at home.
Okay, you said that your motive for going to the meeting was that you would be able to come out and tell the world Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. So are you in a position to say that? Do you believe, as a consequence of your 4.5 hours with Erika, do you believe that it is now most likely that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk?
Absolutely not. I haven't seen one piece of compelling evidence that Tyler Robinson scaled the rooftops like Spider-Man on a college campus that he didn't go to, and fired one shot, a magic bullet shot, and killed Charlie Kirk. I have not seen one piece of compelling evidence. In fact, I've seen more compelling evidence to the contrary.
You've seen their vibrant ads illuminating billboards and celebrating its 10 years. Story, a myth for your family, all together. Who does Erika think killed her husband?
Well, I think that in her recent PR blitz, she sort of communicated that she trusted her team, and her lawyer was using kind of the same rhetoric that the media has been using, where, there's really, this is like, it's overwhelming. Maybe he didn't say the word overwhelming, but he was like, it's very clear, I think is what he said in particular. And then I pushed back and I said, what's clear? The affidavit? That's all you guys have? And I did tell him, if you would never be my lawyer, because it's just, a lawyer that's just kind of giving you adjectives, and I don't need a cheerleader. I need someone to be practical and to say, we don't have anything yet. I think the communication should be, we are hopeful that throughout this investigation, we are going to uncover more evidence that links Tyler Robinson to this crime. I do feel confident that he was involved in some capacity on that day. As I have said many times on my show, I was the one who broke the story that he was at the Dairy Queen throwing out clothes, a local Dairy Queen, throwing out clothes in a nearby cemetery. And so I do think he was involved, and multiple people were involved that day. And I think he did pick up clothes. I had communication with Lance's family. I had communication with Tyler Robinson's family. And for some reason, Lance is being protected, which I find to be very strange. His own family thinks he's guilty of more, and they find it weird that the feds kind of glossed over him, almost as though he was a Fed operative, like he was working on behalf of them. And we've caught the feds have lied a lot. It's just a fact. Turning Point USA people have lied a lot. That is a fact, which they have agreed to. They said that these were mistakes, but they, whether a mistake or not, the public was lied to. So this obviously, matters deeply to me. And it's just absurd that people would think that I'm doing this for clicks. I know Charlie. I knew Charlie. Charlie and I are very close. And it has been one of the most disgusting things ever that people first and foremost tried to start this psychological operation that Charlie and I hadn't spoken since 2019. They've lied about virtually everything that I've said on my podcast. I'm not going to let this go. Okay. We don't live in a country that is the embodiment of democratic principles. If Charlie Kirk gets publicly executed and the media apparatus is doing everything they can to cover the tracks, I would say to cover the tracks by demanding that there is no further inquiry into what happened on that day. That is not a country that I can get behind.
Let's get to some of the details, because it seems to me you've put up a lot of theories, but a lot of them don't seem to have a clear conclusion from you about what you actually think happened. I mean, you've been all over this now ever since Charlie was killed. What do you believe happened to him? Who do you think killed him?
So I can't tell you definitively who pulled the trigger. I'm not going to lie to audiences and just put something out there that's not real. But what I can say is I feel convinced that the feds were involved. I can tell you that. I think the feds were involved in staging a cover-up. I think Kash Patel knows what happened and did not happen on that day. I am convinced by me being told by people that are feds that he is not acting right and that he is not wanting to share any information. Just a couple of people are allowed to even see anything. A Fed told me that they can't even touch the Charlie Kirk file without risk of being fired, and that he's grown increasingly mad. The U.S. Marshals that were there when they were doing the quote unquote manhunt for 33 hours said that Kash Patel effectively sent them on a wild goose chase, which is what was signaled to the public when he said, we got him, and it was actually the wrong person. And so it caused people to stop looking because they were convinced they had the shooter. They felt that that was in order to allow the real perpetrators of the crimes to get away.
But that could just be the fog of the immediacy of these things. We've seen it at Brown University. Exactly the same thing. They thought they had the killer. They thought they had the killer. It turned out to be the wrong person. Right? It doesn't mean there's any great conspiracy by the feds to cover anything up. And again, even if what you're saying is true, I don't know, maybe you're right. If what you're saying is true, what is it they're covering up? You've so far intimated or inferred something weird involving Egyptian planes. So, what's that about? You've inferred perhaps Israeli involvement in some way. You've certainly inferred a lot of Turning Point USA involvement. That's a lot of people getting involved here in the murder of Charlie Kirk potentially. But what I'm really curious about is, given you've been all over all this and you've been airing all these theories, well, which one is it? It can't be all of these things. Is it somebody? Well, of course, is it someone at Turning Point USA? I mean, who do you actually believe was behind this?
Of course, it can be all of those things. And what's really ironic here is that there's a clip of Charlie in the last months leading up to his death where he speaks about the JFK assassination. And he says that multiple countries were involved, multiple people were involved, the LBJ was involved, the feds were involved. And he's correct. That is what it means. When there is a conspiracy, there are multiple people that are involved. Of course, there's not one person on a grassy knoll who shot JFK.
Well, it might have been that.
There are people who had to agree to it.
We don't.
Would have had to. The Dallas police were involved.
Candace,
I'm answering your question. I'm answering your question.
But my point is,
why aren't you just going to point to one person? That to me, even that seems like a part of telling people not to believe their own gut. Obviously, for this to have been pulled off, there had to have been multiple people involved. There had to have been people at Turning Point that were complicit in having this happen. Now, who knows what their motivations are? Doesn't mean maybe this person's like, hey, I'm going to help you.
Hang on. Okay, let me stop you. Hang on. When you say obviously somebody at Turning Point, you are accusing right now people that worked with Charlie Kirk at the company he built, which is now run by his widow. You are directly accusing people in that company of being complicit in his murder, right?
I want to just be very clear connecting that dot. So I said that when there is a conspiracy, of course, there are going to be multiple people involved. So applying that same logic to JFK, right? knowing, as I do, and as Charlie did, believe that LBJ was involved, which then implicates the feds as having been involved, which then implicates the Dallas police station as being involved. I believe Israel was obviously involved, that they were the ones that wanted him dead for saying that what is now AIPAC should have to register under FARA. So there's motive. There are people that have to be involved on the ground that day. There are people that have to be willing to allow the perpetrators to get away. There has to be media that's complicit, and that's what literally Operation Mockingbird was. It was established.
But you know the problem.
To persuade the public.
Candace, here's the problem.
Well, hang on. It was established.
So but here's the problem with everything you're saying.
In this massive cover-up.
You keep saying, and this is where people think you're prone to endless conspiracy theories for whatever reason.
Okay.
Is you keep using the phrase they have to have been involved. So by that yardstick, what you're saying is with JFK's assassination, and we recently had a lot of the files released, which did not conclusively prove any of these things, right? Now, again, I don't know what happened to JFK, but the one possibility you've not ruled in is it was just as simple as Lee Harvey Oswald. It might have been. We don't know. Right, so when you say the media has to have been involved, Lyndon Johnson has to have been. But my problem is you're stating all these things as facts.
We can't do 63. It's such a nonsense to say that it was Lee Harvey Oswald acting.
You don't know that.
That's just such a nonsense. No, I do know it was not Lee Harvey Oswald acting by himself, and then that required national security to lock down the files, and that required the feds to impart, the CIA to impart Operation Mockingbird to convince the public that it was, you can't go against, there's a grieving witness.
The biggest sign of a big, giant cover-up is when you try to do everything in your power to hide the truth. When you try to hide the truth, and there's multiple events in history where people try to convince us and think that we're as dumb as we are, and covering up the truth and saying this is the definitive thing. If it is the definitive thing, there's nothing left to hide, right? There's nothing left to speculate or theorize. But when things like, I mean, if you want to go on the route, I'm not trying to get canceled on this channel, but if you've seen the movie JFK, there's a specific thing that they did not mention in the movie JFK involving another nation. And there's a reason for that. And the fact that it's not even mentioned when it's a lot of speculation, when people know about the history about JFK with the nuclear bomb situation, it makes you question, why wasn't it even a topic of discussion within the movie, or even as a potential theory or a potential thing to speculate on, so that the audience can figure that out their own selves, right? Charlie Kirk situation is the exact same thing, where it's important to not just be closed off and it was just Tyler Robinson by himself. That's it. I don't know either, but I appreciate that Candace is someone that's willing to figure out where all these things connect, because there's multiple things that just do not make sense within this assassination.
Widow, don't look further into it. Don't believe your own eyes.
But let me just say, this is your, Candace.
It was a grand conspiracy that killed JFK.
Candace,
I am going to say that confidently. And I just think we have to grow up. We have to grow up. We can't keep pretending Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK.
Fine.
We can't keep doing that.
That is your opinion. Today, Piers. Yes, 70%.
No, that's a fact.
No, it's not a fact.
It's a fact.
It's not a fact.
It's a fact.
The whole reason there are still conspiracy theories about JFK's assassination is none of this is a fact. You are floating it as your theory.
Because the feds are never going to admit to their own crimes. That is the reason we're still discussing it.
That may be the case, but you can't prove that.
Yeah, well, I can prove common sense that Lee Harvey Oswald did not stand on a grassy knoll and assassinate a president. And LBJ, like Charlie says in that clip, which people should go pursue.
Yes, I know Charlie
all
said
of the weird things that happened that day that were unusual, and LBJ decided not to ride that day. And then suddenly he reversed course on all of JFK's policies, and he was fighting AIPAC. Israel killed JFK.
All right.
Now, going back to your point about Turning Point USA and the ridiculous idea that implicating, this is a $100 million organization.
Yeah.
Common sense. If this was not even a high-profile political assassination, and this was just a guy who worked at a company that was $100 million, right? Common sense inquiry is, was there a financial motive for this person to be dead? Okay. This is like Sherlock Holmes 101. And this is what I mean when I say that the public no longer trusts the media because you're acting us to be stupid. And we don't want to do that. We actually don't want to pretend that we're clinical idiots who can't assess things and go, oh, there could be a massive motive here to have Charlie dead, especially when it seems very strange that Bibi Netanyahu, when nobody even had a clue of what happened, this guy's doing the rounds on Fox News and saying, I didn't kill Charlie Kirk. That's kind of weird. Did you feel compelled to jump on to Piers Morgan's show and say, just so everybody knows, I didn't kill Charlie Kirk? Why would he say that?
So
Why was he so involved as somebody who's fighting a 97,000 front war?
Candace, I want to get to the reality of what you're actually saying. So when you say that somebody at Turning Point USA, Charlie's company, was complicit in his murder, who was?
I believe that there were multiple people at Turning Point who are, as I have said many times, my exact words are, they are engaged in a cover-up of what happened to Charlie on that day.
No, but who was involved in his murder?
I didn't say that they murdered Charlie.
You said that people at Turning Point were complicit in his murder.
No, my exact sentence that I said was that there were people at Turning Point who are engaged in a cover-up.
No, you didn't.
I believe that thoroughly.
Candace, you didn't say that. You said literally.
I did say that on my entire show.
You said there were people at Turning Point complicit in his murder.
Okay.
That's what you said.
When you and I were discussing, that's why I said, let's go back. I was applying the logic of a conspiracy to JFK. I said, okay, JFK, you have people that are complicit. Of course, if you apply that logic, if there is a conspiracy, there's going to be multiple people that are going to be complicit by the time, in order for a large stage murder to happen.
You specifically said, you didn't say complicit in a cover-up. You said complicit in the murder. Because I said, who at Turning Point was involved in his murder? And
let me clarify for you. Okay, you can keep saying what I said, or you can listen to what I am saying.
Okay.
When I was using the analogy of JFK and we were connecting it, I was basically pushing back on you because you were suggesting that, all of these people being involved would be crazy. So I was applying the analogy of what happened to JFK. Well, you actually, if you go back and listen,
I don't know.
Suggesting that a conspiracy.
I said you don't know either. You're floating theories.
When we started talking about the JFK thing,
listen, let me make it clear.
Piers, I really think you're not holding on to your thoughts here
Candace,
correctly.
let me spell out my thought very clearly.
When we started talking about JFK, the implication that you were making was that it was crazy to suggest that multiple people could have been involved at different levels. I was then connecting the dots and saying that in order for the JFK assassination to happen, there had to have been tons of people that were complicit.
I understand. I heard what you said.
Maybe you're the person who takes the cameras down. Maybe you're the person that told him to drive that day. Maybe you're LBJ. So they're not all complicit in the murder, but they're all at different varying stages involved in the cover-up. Right? So that's what a grand conspiracy actually is. And I do believe, so you don't have to go back and we don't have to go through it. I'm telling you what I think about Turning Point. I am very known for being honest about what I believe. I'm not exactly a person that you got to pull teeth on.
Sure.
I believe that there are people at Turning Point who are engaged in covering up what happened on that day.
But were any of them engaged in the planning of the murder of Charlie Kirk?
I wouldn't know how it was planned. Absolutely, I can't make that. I cannot confidently make that statement. I can say confidently that I know they're engaged in the cover-up because I've been investigating what happened on that day and what transpired thereafter. I've been clear. I've named those people on my show. I've said they are engaged in a cover-up, and I've listed the lies. So you don't have to try to make something out of what I didn't say. I tell you what I think. It's already controversial. We don't need to get more controversial, okay? Do I think someone at Turning Point pulled the trigger? No. Obviously, I don't think someone at Turning Point pulled the trigger.
Do you think anybody at Turning Point
did
anybody at Turning Point, in your opinion, know that Charlie Kirk was going to be murdered?
There is specifically 2 people at Turning Point USA, and I have communicated that information to Erika and Justin Strife, that I would not be surprised if they had foreknowledge of Charlie Kirk being assassinated.
But do you have any evidence?
I'm not going to name. I am not going to name those people, okay? Because it's not right for me to name those people until I know for a fact that they did.
Did you give the names Did you give the names to Erika?
Yes, I absolutely did.
You gave the names to Erika of 2 employees, current employees at Turning Point, who you believe were involved in the preparation for the murder of Charlie Kirk. Is that what you're saying?
I told them that if I were in your shoes, these would be 2 employees that I would look further into. That's
and what evidence do you have that they had any prior knowledge of the murder?
Because I don't have concrete evidence is the reason why I'm not naming them. So I've been responsible.
You've got no evidence,
not saying,
but you're telling the widow that these 2 people may have been involved in the murder. But You see the problem?
Well, what the evidence for it is people that there was not concrete evidence. It's like you're trying to get me to say something that I never said and then asking me to defend it.
No, I'm asking what evidence
let's
you've
actually
got.
go to. You're asking me privately. Did I communicate to them that I think you should look further? That's called an investigation, Piers. Okay. So what you're doing is a strategy of like if somebody dies, you're saying to the police, you can't ask any questions about anybody unless you have concrete evidence. We're at the stage of investigation.
I'm not saying
yes,
that.
you can. And let me give people in the public the permission to do this. Follow your instinct. If you feel something is off, keep asking questions until you get concrete evidence. And when you have concrete evidence, you should name those people. I don't have the concrete evidence.
You have named other people.
I find their inconsistencies.
Okay. But you have named other people.
I'm trying to answer, Piers, you can't ask me questions. You can't ask me questions. Let me finish it. I have communicated to them that their inconsistencies make me uncomfortable. I have communicated to them that somebody else who is a third party gave me some information that I am not yet comfortable as I am vetting it, giving it to the public, because that's the responsible thing to do. These are private citizens. And that if I were in their shoes and had more access to information, I would go down that route. Okay. Unless I am fully confident that they actually did have something to do, like here is the smoking gun, I'm not going to name those people. Okay. But the people I have named thus far are people that I believe are engaged in a cover-up. Like I said, hold me accountable for what I have said.
Let's talk about one of those people. Let's talk about one of those people because the Turning Point producer, Blake Neff, wrote this in early December. Ever since Charlie's murder, Candace Owens has leveled a flood of allegations against people at Turning Point USA, people at Turning Point Action, and people who work for the show. She has made them against some of Charlie's closest friends and against some of his most dedicated employees. She suggested that Michael McCoy, Charlie's chief of staff, knew Charlie would be murdered, was happy that he died, and stayed silent because he was told he would be the next Charlie. Now, let's move then to, you said in your podcast that new information was given to you in your meeting with Erika Kirk about Mikey McCoy that's now satisfied you. On a video on the 27th of October, you devoted a whole episode to this guy and his supposedly strange behavior. I never said I have
information that satisfied me about Mikey McCoy.
Well, I'll ask you to clarify. Okay, well, you can clarify that in a moment. But let's hear what you said about Mikey McCoy before the meeting.
So we decided to slow this clip down, and we're going to watch this clip slow down so you can see that it is exactly 834 milliseconds from the time that you hear the shot. That is how long it takes for Mikey McCoy to put the phone to his ear. Now, why is that precise timing so important? Because there's no dialing. Mikey didn't have time to dial, okay? You can't dial and put your phone to an ear in 0.834 seconds.
Now, what was the new information that you got in your meeting with Erika about Mikey McCoy?
So I'm sorry, your gotcha is not going too well, but I never then said, I am now satisfied that Mikey put the phone to his ear. What I presented to the public, it was
I didn't say that. Sorry, just to clarify.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you did say you
inferred on your podcast. Well, let me give you the chance to clarify.
Oh my God! How many ads are you gonna? Sorry, how many ads is Piers gonna give? Jesus Christ, bro! I don't care about your stupid advertisers. I don't care. Sorry.
You inferred on your podcast after the meeting with Erika that you'd received new information about Mikey McCoy, which had changed your mind. Would that be the best way to categorize it, or changed some of your mind?
No, I never said that. I just presented it. Well, the only thing that I clarified on my podcast, if that's what they're getting wrong, is that some people thought that he was using a nickname that was his middle name. And actually his real name is Michael, like first name Michael, because I was like trying to find something. And I was like, oh, maybe he's actually using his middle name. So that's what I clarified on my podcast.
And you were given call logs, is that right?
Presented.
You were shown call logs? You were shown call logs?
They gave me a printout of Mikey's call logs and I gave it to the public. That's it. I mean, they're saying this, and then the public obviously comes back and says,
do you believe Mikey McCoy had any prior knowledge of Charlie's murder?
I can't say that he had prior knowledge of the murder unless I have something concrete. I can't say anything about prior knowledge. What I can say is what happened on that day. Mikey's behavior is weird on that day. I find it weird, like I said in the podcast yesterday, that what has been communicated to the public is like he called Erika instantly. First thing he did was call Erika instantly. And that's actually the call logs show that he didn't call Erika instantly.
But what are you suggesting about this guy?
And then he had 3 ways.
When you got a massive platform,
and then showing his call logs showed that Blake Neff actually didn't tell the truth about what happened on that day.
But here's the problem, Candace. You have a massive platform, as you know. Millions and millions of people hang on your every word. When you devote a large part of an entire episode to the strange behavior of Charlie Kirk's chief of staff, you are putting a target on the guy's back. You're inferring he has something to do with this, or something to do with some cover-up, or whatever it is you're inferring. You know what you're doing when you do that. When you saw Erika Kirk, did you say to her that you believed there's something suspicious about Michael McCoy? Was she able to explain to you why there isn't? Or does she share your view that he is somehow complicit in this in some way?
Well, we actually dedicated more time to speaking about his father, who I think it's strange to me that man calls himself a pastor. I communicated fully that everything about that man makes my skin crawl. I think he's a bad person. I think he's involved with bad people. And this is obviously, Mikey's his son. And, I asked a bit about Rob McCoy and Mikey McCoy's relationship. I would just like to be clear. I am not going to be emotionally conditioned to believe that asking questions when we aren't getting any answers is the crime itself. The crime was when Charlie got shot in the neck. So,
but you've already said, you've already said though, you told
the easiest way to remove, the easiest way, let me finish. You can't ask me questions, not let me finish.
You're contradicting what you just said to me.
But you have to.
You said to me earlier,
what did I contradict?
You said you gave 2 names of people in the Turning Point organization that you believe are complicit in some way. You gave those names, but you wouldn't name them because it wouldn't be right to do that. But you did name this guy, Mikey McCoy, who was the chief of staff.
Because his actions are strange. You're 2 different things. I really, Piers, I think you're having trouble holding on to 2 buckets of thought here, okay? You said, in regards to someone that was complicit in murder, that is a very serious allegation. I gave them names of people that would not surprise me if they did have foreknowledge of Charlie Kirk's murder. You are now shifting gears and you're asking me about Mikey McCoy and why I am raising red flags about his behavior on that day. Because I believe his behavior on that day was weird. I think it's painfully obvious.
So do you believe he's been complicit?
I don't know people that don't duck when a shot comes down.
Complicit?
So I'm sorry that I have eyes. And I am agreeing with the public that Mikey McCoy's behavior was weird on that day. Okay, these are 2 different things. Now, if I'm going to make an assertion that somebody had something to do with planning this murder, I better be damn sure. And if I said that on my podcast, right? That's all I'm saying. I had never made that claim that Mikey McCoy planned Charlie Kirk's assassination.
No, I think like a lot of the claims you're making, it's difficult to work out what you're actually claiming. You're throwing a lot of mud in the air, including people's names, which immediately then has millions of people chasing after these guys on social media and thinking,
I'm sorry they get caught lying. Like, I'm sorry, what is this? This is like, the public is actually being abused, okay? Let's stop pretending that the victim
Are they, or do you just
Rob
want them
McCoy.
to think they are?
No, the public is being abused because you're basically saying, stop noticing that people at Turning Point USA are lying.
No, I'm not.
How dare Candace and the public know? Yes, you are.
No.
How dare Candace?
But when there's an emphatic repudiation of what you're saying.
If Mikey lies and Rob McCoy lies and Blake Neff lies, and yes, all of these people have lied on record after the assassination. And the public goes, hey, that's kind of a weird lie. You're like, how dare you put a target on their back by noticing that they're lying? I mean, what weird psychological operation is this?
Do you believe?
Lie.
Okay, but do you believe Erika Kirk has been lying about it?
No, I have been explicit on my show when people were saying, why aren't you attacking Erika Kirk? I said, because Erika Kirk has not lied. If to the extent that she lies, I will call it out. And that is why I did call out when she lied, okay? When she said Charlie Kirk never received any text messages the night before saying that he was worried about that he was going to get murdered tomorrow. I instantly said, well, here we have it. That's a lie. He definitively did send out text messages to both Dan Flood and Andrew Colba. And when we met in person, she clarified that, okay, yes, that's real. And we didn't know until you said it because he was using a different app and she was checking his iMessages. So to me, if you lie, you're going to make an enemy of me. Just don't lie. How about that basic requirement to say to people, don't lie about what happened on that day. Don't lie about what you did on that day, because that's the first clue to investigators that person should be looked at further.
All
Again,
right.
this is common sense.
Okay, let's move to something else Blake Neff said. He said, Candace has made other stranger allegations involving French paratroopers in maroon shirts, Egyptian Air Force planes flying out of Provo, Utah, and potential underground assassins traveling through unseen tunnels. At one point in early November, she started wildly throwing suspicion on members of Utah Valley's soccer team for wearing hoodies. I could go on. There's always something new coming up. None of it ever pans out because from the start, there's been nothing there. What do you say to that?
He's lying. And that's the reason why Blake Neff is a suspicious character. I mean, him saying that I pointed to a soccer UVU person is complete fiction. I never had discussed that person on my show. Somebody was asking for a clearer photo of the person on X, and I shared it. No suspicion. Never said this person had anything to do with anything. I never covered him as a suspect on my show of anything at all. Didn't ask for more information on this person. That kid instantly responded and said, oh, those are our school colors. And that was it. And Turning Point tried to turn it into a thing. Why are you doing that? Regarding the Egyptian planes, that's a fact. Why are you saying she said that there was a military Egyptian plane on the ground that day? There was. In fact, there were two. So why are you pretending that that's like a weird thing to notice? And that is why people have been flagged about these planes. To his other,
let me ask you about the planes.
I'm never allowed to answer a single question that you say in entirety before you move on to the next question.
You can't just keep talking ad infinitum. I'm allowed to ask you another question.
No, it's called answering. You just read an entire statement of multiple points of Blake's.
It's called filibustering.
I got to the second point, and you're like, let me ask you a question.
No, I want to ask you. No,
Piers, you already asked me a question. I'm trying to answer the question that you asked.
No, I want to ask you a follow-up specifically about the Egyptian planes, given you've now addressed it, which is, where is the evidence that any of these Egyptian planes were tracking Erika Kirk?
I am going to be publishing the full document because there's not even just 2 planes. There's actually 4 planes that have been flying in, and I should be more thorough because I realized that the spreadsheet I posted,
Kirk.
Not that. Let me. Can I just please, without you cutting me off, answer one thing? Okay, thank you. These Egyptian planes, more broadly speaking, now that we have gone deeper onto the planes, recognizing that the reaction to them is not normal, what we can say is that these Egyptian planes are tied to Israel. They've been flying in and out of Israel with their transponder off for years. But regarding the Turning Point USA picture, more broadly speaking, Turning Point USA faith, okay? Obviously, Erika has been involved in a lot of the church stuff. It's not specifically tracking just Erika. It's Turning Point faith events. Broadly speaking, I gave that information as well. I told Justin Strife and Erika, I'm happy to give you this like color-coded spreadsheet. There's no question there's a correlation here between Turning Point USA faith in particular, which, by the way, from the beginning of this, I've said something is wrong with this faith contingent, especially because Rob McCoy for a while was heading up that department, and he makes my skin crawl. And so, yeah, I have the evidence for that. And we're going to actually publish it on our website.
Right,
so there can be no question, which I should have done from the very beginning.
But let me ask you.
Showing that these planes were tracking Charlie. At various times there were Erika is, various times there were Rob McCoy is. But the consistent thread here is faith events, like Kingdom to the Capitol tour.
Assuming you're right, and I don't know, but I know Erika Kirk, when asked about this, said on CBS, if you want to go through my flight log, go right ahead. It's very boring. You, Candace, say I was here on this date. I have a photo on my phone to prove I was actually in hospital having contractions. So that's one thing she's directly repudiated. But let's assume for a moment you're right, and that all these Egyptian planes were flying around tracking Charlie Kirk and Turning Point, Faith and Erika Kirk. Why? What is your theory?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, what's your theory then? You must have an idea.
My theory is that we should investigate everything strange that happened on that day so we can figure out what happened.
But are you suggesting that?
Are you
suggesting
why is everybody
Egypt?
Why are we pretending that we don't know why we ask questions? Like why? Like you're a journalist.
You
know
what this
is. You're like, what's going on? What's going on? Why do you want to know why these planes were tracking Charlie? Well, my theory is that we are being sold absolute Fed slop. The media is doing their Operation Mockingbird Part 2 scenario by telling us, well, unless you absolutely have a conclusion, you can't even ask the question. Yes, we very well can keep asking consistent questions until we get a clarified explanation for what happened on that day. And right now, we have nothing, okay? And that is the reason why people are watching my show, because I'm the only one not treating them like they're absolute idiots who don't have two eyes and who believe in magic bully theory and who understand that Egyptian planes should not have been tracking Charlie even 3 times this year would be an anomaly, okay? They've been tracking him. We don't know where it's going to end, but we are going to keep asking questions until we get clear answers.
Candace, it may be that the person in the media spewing bullshit to the public is you.
No, nice try. It's not. It's you by saying, why are you asking questions? Don't you worry about Mikey's feelings? Everyone knows what this is. And like I said, because we have the example, the concrete example of after JFK's assassination, the media members quite literally being put on the payroll of the CIA. We have a historical example that we can look at and go, we're not doing that again. Doesn't matter how many times you keep telling the public that I'm spewing bullshit. It is only because there has not been anything that has come out of this investigation that makes any sense that the public is not listening to. I am sorry to say this, Piers, people like you. And what I love about you and I sitting down is that this exact same time last year, you were doing the same weird questioning and making all these things when I said that they were committing a Holocaust against the Gazans, and then you changed your mind.
Actually,
Piers,
this time,
I'll see you next year when you change your mind again, and we have more information about what happened, and you realize that the difference between me and you is that I have the courage to take the risks and ask the questions first, okay, before it's popular. You wait until it becomes popular, and then you change your mind.
You may remember that one of your courageous moves was to repeatedly tell the world that Brigitte Macron is a man. As you now know,
and she is.
As you now know, we had a $300,000 bet to charity about this because she's a woman.
Yes.
Is my view.
She's not a woman.
Well, we're going to find out is the point, because it's going to court. They're suing you. And when she proves, as she will, that she's a woman, because it's very easy to prove, and you lose that case, then
so easy that she refuses to do it for years.
But then it will become more obvious to people that, look, I think you're a brilliant operator at what you do. That's, I like you personally. You know that, right? None of this is personal for me about you at all. I just have watched him last year from Brigitte Macron now into the Charlie Kirk story. I think you've developed a modus operandi, which, to put it politely, is you flying what we would call in the world of journalism kites, and just seeing what can cause the most merry hell, therefore get you the biggest audience, therefore make you the most amount of money. And people have, as you know, you've been widely attacked now by a lot of people who say that you're just a ghoul, a vulture. You're doing this deliberately. You're inventing things or just flying ludicrous conspiracy theories to make money. Now, again, Candace, I don't know that you are, but I do know.
Celebrity.
Can you not interrupt me?
I do think it's pretty rich. It's pretty rich coming from you is all I'm going to say. That's me putting it very nicely, given your background, your career, your celebrity involvement, and the Princess Diana. Wrong messenger is what I'll say right off the top. Okay. Wrong messenger. What you are mistaking, or I guess we're not even mistaking because you know what this is. You're talking about power versus the people. And you are always on the side of power first. You're on the side of the Israelis. It's so horrible. And, I'm going to pretend I don't see tens of thousands of Gazans dying.
I've actually been very critical of the Israelis, as you know,
where
in the
your
last
bread
year.
is buttered. Everybody
I've actually
knows
been very
Brigitte
critical of the
Macron
Israeli
has a
government.
penis, okay? It's very easy to present photos of 30 years of your life. Brigitte keeps teasing, Brigitte, nobody asked you for a blood test. We asked you for some photos and you refused to do it. And everybody knows that Charlie Kirk was not shot by Tyler Robinson on a rooftop. I am sorry that in this day and age, there seems to be such a shortage of testosterone that a woman has to be the person that states the obvious, right? I invite you to join me, and I know that you will by the end of next year, because they're not going to get away with what they did to my friend Charlie Kirk. And I am not going to change my mind, least of all when I am being called names by someone who has quite a year background and experience in doing things because it's lucrative and not always because it's sensitive.
Sure,
it's always lovely.
You can call me a hypocrite as much as you want. I don't care. It's fine. I'm just simply saying what other people have been saying about you. I didn't say I felt that.
Thank you.
I said
I'll let you know what people are saying about you too. I'll keep you posted on what people are saying about you.
I read it all the time. But I would say that, like I said at the start of this interview, I don't know whether any of the things you're saying are true or not. I just do know you're saying a huge amount of stuff. It's making you very wealthy. You're getting millions and millions of people coming in, which by the way,
what is this idea that's making me very wealthy? Can you actually explain that slowly?
Yes, I'm going to explain it to you slowly, because I had a huge run-in, for example.
This is just like a talking point.
I'm going to explain exactly what I mean. When Sandy Hook happened and Alex Jones began weaponizing the Sandy Hook tragedy and weaponizing the grief of the poor parents who'd lost their children, and I began to attack him in public. And then eventually there was a court case, and it turned out he'd been spewing deliberate lies, and that every time he spewed them, they found he made hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in the immediate aftermath of spewing the repeated lies, that it was all staged and the families were actors and so on, which he knew to be lies. And he made himself extremely rich and ended up with $1 billion defamation finding against him because he'd been deliberately weaponizing people's grief. And the charge...
I'm asking you to explain that.
I'm explaining to you
how was he making money?
I'm explaining to you the analogy, which is, there are, as you know, right now, a lot of people, from Tim Pool to the New York Post to others, who've come out very stridently in the last week, and say that's exactly what you've been doing with Erika Kirk.
Yeah, but you haven't answered the question. So this is just made up. It's, as I said, this is just all fluff. You're suggesting that I'm making money. Did I sign a new advertiser? Are we reading more ads? Do we put this somewhere else? Do we sign
the more
a book
views
deal
you get on YouTube, the more money you
make. I sell a T-shirt? Okay, but like, come on now, Piers. Money on YouTube? Are you kidding me? I was already in a top 10 podcast globally before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And if you think that I would want my friend to be assassinated so I could go from being in the top 5 to being number 1, you're out of your mind.
No,
okay,
I'm telling you,
it's so disrespectful. But like the point is that everyone who is saying that I'm making more money cannot say how I'm making more money because it's just not true. Okay, so you're like, oh, she got a bump in viewership talking about Charlie.
Your YouTube numbers
everyone in the world because it was a public assassination. And then it went up in the weeks following, and it went back to normal.
Candace, are your YouTube numbers up since you've been doing the Charlie Kirk investigations?
What I am saying to you is that this is the exact same argument you guys had about Brigitte. So it can't, and then the same exact same
but I think you were
argument
lying about Brigitte.
About the Blake Lively thing. Okay, but like, what about the Blake Lively thing? So you can't keep saying that, oh, she's always in the top 10 because she's talking about something. Or this is my podcast and it's me. It's just me. People enjoy my podcast because I don't treat them like they're idiots. I don't treat them like they should accept that Brigitte Macron just can't present one photo of herself raising her kids across 30 years. It's just too much to ask. Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. How dare you? It's such an intrusion of privacy. She'd rather file a transatlantic lawsuit than to just produce photos and put all of this to bed. That's the difference between you and I. So now there's this repeat lie from Kamala Chronicles, which we did looking into Kamala's background because it was relevant to the election cycle. Then we did the Blake Lively lawsuit, and they said, oh, she's trying to change her brand. That's the only reason her numbers are up. Then we went to Brigitte, which I lost, by the way. I had to get a whole career change when I first covered that story. So joke's on me if I'm doing this to make money, but I was willing to be fired to tell the truth. And then it's all about Brigitte. And now we've arrived at Charlie Kirk. I feel like there's something about that actually is just people not being willing to admit that what people appreciate about me and why they keep coming back is that I'm willing to take risks to tell the truth.
No, I think, don't get me wrong.
I was already sold out on ads at the end of the year because our podcast was successful. Yeah, I have not sold a T-shirt, nothing with his name on it. It's just me.
Candace, the reason I told the Alex Jones story is he did incredibly well out of Sandy Hook with his investigations. But as was established in the court case against him, brought by the families eventually, and I think we're going to see the same thing with Brigitte Macron and you, is that he was weaponizing deliberate lies for money. And I think you
Brigitte Macron has a penis. I really want you to know that.
Brigitte Macron does not have a penis.
Brigitte Macron has a penis.
No, she doesn't.
I'm sorry.
She had 3 children.
Did she get it removed?
She had 3 children.
Yeah, you can have adoptive children. You can call somebody, but Brigitte Macron was born a dude named Jean-Michel Trogneau. And I just feel... I want you to know that. I want you to know that Brigitte Macron probably stands peeing up. Probably pees standing up is what I want you to know.
The beauty is we have a big bet.
I think Brigitte
we have a big bet, and we're going to find out because it's going to court. And, you will lose that court case. I think you will.
Yeah. I am not going to lose a court case because Brigitte is presenting evidence that Brigitte was born a woman because that's never even been offered. That's just their PR coming after and saying these things. Nobody believes that Brigitte Macron is just unable to present any pictures. Nobody's asking for blood.
All right, let's wait for the court case. Let's wait for the court case.
Okay, great. Now, look, and you will be proven wrong again unless there's just federal corruption.
Okay, in the fallout from your encounter with Erika Kirk, Nick Fuentes said Candace Owens is done.
Out.
What a letdown.
Oh, LOL.
Tim Pool has called you evil. He says you're motivated by the fact you were secretly in love with Charlie Kirk. Is that true?
This is such ridiculous. Like, this is what I mean when I say it's like LOL Fed slop. Oh, did Tim Pool say that I was secretly in love with him? This is it's so. Come on, there's no substance to this. This is so ridiculous. It's by any means necessary. Come out and attack Candace. The New York Post did an article that it was honestly amazing fan fiction. They even said that we used to work at Daily Wire. I'd throw my keys at my staff, and my staff hated me. I did not drive to work a single day when I was at the Daily Wire. They had a driver take me there. So we're just now in this weird spot where they're just making things up every single day. They said that my husband had a Qatari passport, and I just ignore it. And I keep investigating because I know what it's meant to do. It's meant to distract me. I'm very aware of what these people are trying to do, and it's not working. So I don't really feel
Which of your theories,
Nick Fuentes and Tim Pool.
All right. Which of your theories when you were with Erika did she think was convincing?
We didn't. What do you mean by that?
Well, did she think that Israel was involved? Did she think that there were French paratroopers involved? Did she think the Egyptian planes were complicit? Did she believe that Turning Point employees were involved? Which of the many theories
I wasn't. I guess.
Did she think is actually got any merit to it?
I think you're characterizing it like I sat down and tried to convince her of my theories. That wasn't the nature of the meeting that we had. I shared information with her and told her, what the feds were ignoring. And these are the things I'm looking into. Obviously explained to her about the Egyptian planes and this bizarre connection to, Turning Point faith events and tours. And yeah, it was kind of like sharing the information with her. So there was nothing that. But
again, here's my problem, Candace, with the whole thing. Everything is like, you're just asking questions, you're sharing information, you're doing it. But when I actually ask you to be specific about, well, who do you think did what? That's where it all hits a shuddering halt. You don't know, do you? You don't actually know, anyway.
Of course, if I actually knew who shot Charlie Kirk, I would be instantly publicizing it. I'd say, I figured it out. That's not how an investigation works. Piers just doesn't work like that, okay? You have to follow the clues until you arrive at a conclusion. Of course, I cannot confidently state that it was, John Smith who shot Charlie Kirk from the left side. I don't know that yet. I don't know that information yet. And when I do know it, I will publicize it without question. I just am pointing out the inconsistencies, the lies. He was not shot with 30-06, and he did not have a Man of Steel neck,
how do you know?
That's completely made up. Well, actually, that's going to be my show today. I do now factually know that Man of Steel thing was made up, and that never came from the surgeon's mouth. So again, we have another lie. We have another lie coming out of Turning Point USA. And put in quotation marks that lie, that it was a direct quote from the surgeon. That was made up. So yeah, I'm going to keep track of all of these lies, deliver them to the public, and allow them to surmise. I'm going to allow them to think critically while it's still legal. I know it's barely legal in the UK, and it's becoming increasingly less legal here in the United States. So I'm going to use every opportunity to ask every question.
Okay, but pre the meeting with Erika, you repeatedly questioned why we weren't being told where Charlie Kirk is buried, or even if he has been buried yet. Did you get those answers?
You have the wrong commentator who questioned that. I think that was Milo Yiannopoulos.
You've never asked where Charlie's buried?
Nope. I just communicated to the people that he had a Catholic funeral mass, because people were saying I was lying about him going to a Catholic church, which was another random attack that I had to endure. So I never said that people don't know where Charlie Kirk's buried. That's just the wrong commentator.
Do you know where he's been buried?
I actually genuinely never got to that question with Erika, but I do know where he's. I think the implication that Milo made, again, you'd have to ask him, was that he's not buried. I do know where there is a spot for him to be buried or to be held in a mausoleum. But that's just, you have the wrong person on that.
Erika was emphatic in the CBS thing that she wanted you to stop with the conspiracy theories, or maybe you've got it all right and all of this stuff is true and it's all involving the Israelis and Egypt and Turning Point in a mass conspiracy with this young kid, Tyler Robinson, brought in, and they're all involved in this dramatic murder of Charlie Kirk. Let's just assume for a moment you're 100% right. But she did tell you publicly before you met to stop. What's clear is you're not going to stop. So is she okay with you now continuing to talk about your theories, or does she still want you to stop?
Well, she didn't ask me to stop. If that's the question that you're asking, is throughout that meeting, did she say,
did publicly, obviously. So your response to that is what?
I'm telling you that then we had a conversation, and I was not asked throughout that conversation to stop. And to the contrary, I shared information that I had, and I got information from them.
Right.
That helps.
So you will carry on.
Focus.
You will carry on.
Yes.
With the theories.
Yes. Until I feel confident of who killed Charlie Kirk, I will not stop investigating this.
And Erika is okay with you doing that?
I don't know how many other ways to answer your question other than saying she did not ask me or request for me to stop in person. And when we spoke about that moment, she felt that Barry Weiss was being Barry Weiss.
And she made no request of you whatsoever, Erika Kirk, in 4.5 hours.
How many times did you ask?
In what sense?
About how she would like you to conduct yourself about the murder of her.
Why she's answered the question like 4 times, Piers. My God.
Husband going forward.
No.
Nothing at all.
No, she didn't make a request for me to conduct myself in
And
any
she
way
expressed
going
no
forward.
concern about
I
any
think-
of the theories that you've been
I
putting
think
out.
she probably knows me through the lens of her husband, so I don't know if that would be a thing that she would have done. But no, she did not. She did not ask me to conduct myself in any way. That seems to just be coming from the media of how I should conduct myself.
Am I right in thinking that your mind has taken you to a place where you genuinely believe that Israel, Egypt, Turning Point employees, and Tyler Robinson, and potentially others, but they were all involved in the murder of Charlie Kirk?
Well, to be fair, I think we're all putting Egypt in parentheses because we kind of don't think that we have exactly a strong Egyptian lobby here in the United States. And there is a lot of historical precedent with Israel kind of using Egyptian planes or using the Egyptian narrative when they want to accomplish things. So, I mean, I just pointed out that this is an Egyptian plane, but Israel, I got tons of questions about. Yeah, I think Israel is a very good place to start when Bibi Netanyahu is just denying and just way too involved in the beginning. That was weird. Everyone felt it was weird, and they were right to feel that it was weird. And when Bibi admits that he called him 2 weeks before and invited him to Israel, like, what's that about? People are being, and also because it just happens to be that from the very beginning, Zionists don't want us investigating the Charlie Kirk assassination. So it's just, I would say, the usual suspects. You are correct that I have and sent information, and it has not been denied by the Élysée Palace, the White House, or the Pentagon, that the French Foreign Legion was on the ground that day. Again, something that I flagged to Turning Point USA, Justin Strife, that for whatever reason, the feds don't want this information, which is a bit strange, or don't seem to be interested, or maybe
so we add the French Foreign Legion
it.
to the list as well.
Yeah, but the French Foreign Legion is like a bandit of, I mean, what I've learned about them now is it's like it's a bunch of different countries. It's not just French people. And yeah, that all sounds about right to me. Is there anything else I can answer?
I think we've probably covered it. It's a lot of people involved in this murder. And my guess, Candace, for what it's worth, is it'll turn out none of that is true. And that it was Tyler Robinson who, for his own politically motivated
Good for
reasons,
you, Piers. Follow the narrative.
brandishing the
Be a sheep.
bullet casings with words
Follow
like anti-fascist slogans.
what the government tells you, right?
That's why he did it. He believed that he'd been led to believe Charlie Kirk was a fascist, so he had to kill him, which is a different issue about why I feel so strongly that these words shouldn't be bandied about, because in deranged young minds, it can have that effect on them. We see it time and again. But look, if it turns out that you're right and that Charlie Kirk was murdered by a group of people, including the French Foreign Legion, Egypt, Israel, Turning Point,
Egypt,
his own employees, and they were all in on this to murder Charlie Kirk, you will be proven 100% right. And I will be the first to salute your brilliant investigative journalism. But in return, if it turns out you're completely wrong, then I would expect you to come back on Uncensored and admit you were completely wrong. Is that a fair deal?
I was hoping that by the time we did this, I'd be able to do that because they showed me something that was so compelling. That didn't happen. So yeah, deal is on, as always. Between you and I, the deal is on.
Excellent. I'll add it to the list. Candace, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. We're both Christians. We have that in common. And it's always good to have you on Uncensored. I'll say this about you. I'll say this to everyone. You come and do these things. You don't duck them. You don't shirk them. You don't hide away. You stand behind what you say. My only question for you, it's not for you, it's about you, is when people say to me, do you think she believes this stuff? I don't know. I don't know if you do or not. I know that Alex Jones didn't.
It's just so fun being the lone person to be attacked every second and every minute of every day that I was just like, you know what? This is so fun for me. I love it. I love the threats of losing your job and people going after your sponsors and having to worry about your security. It's so fun. It would be so easy. I would be a billionaire. I'd be on the cover of Vogue magazine if I would just say the thing. If I would just be a federal operative and tell people to trans their kids and tell them like Brigitte's like a really beautiful woman and tell them that Charlie Kirk was shot by one person on a rooftop with impeccable luck who scaled the rooftop like Spider-Man. That's the easier route in life. Unfortunately, spiritually, I can't do it. I'm just my granddad's granddaughter and he couldn't lie. I can't lie. And I don't want my kids to grow up in a world where a bunch of freaks and pedophiles are in power, which is in the circumstance that we live in today. We cannot live in a world where Jeffrey Epstein is being protected by the government and Charlie Kirk is being publicly assassinated. I can't do it. I won't do it. And let the chips fall where they may.
Candace Owens, always good to have you on Uncensored. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
All right. That was intense. Yeah, Candace, y'all could say what you want. Candace cooked. Did she cook? Do y'all feel like she cooked? And yeah, it's I just wanted to know the truth, but I know that I've been very critical of Kash Patel myself, and the way he's handled the whole thing with the Charlie Kirk situation and other things, it's just been very messy, and I thought, Trump said that during his campaign that we were going to be a lot more transparent with the public. It doesn't seem that way at all. But let me know your guys' thoughts on this. Thank you so much for watching this reaction. And I know I didn't commentate too much because I was just so engaged and I really wanted to pay attention to everything Candace had to say because there's a lot of things, a lot of strings attached to this. So yeah, see you guys in the next video.